Hi everyone, welcome to yet another session of the Be Money Wiser Talks, and I'm Tilda, the founder of Be Money Wiser. So today we are continuing with our talks as we have been doing every Sunday, and thank you all that are able to join us today. As usual, we shall start off with a word of prayer, and I'll lead as usual until such a time when we have more people that can get on board. Okay, so let's humble ourselves and have a word of prayer. Oh God, our Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for today. We thank you for the gift of life and for enabling us to have yet another Be Money Wiser talk this Sunday. We pray that the discussion today may be fruitful and beneficial for all of us to improve a few aspects in our lives and continue to grow on our journey to become money wiser. We thank you, God, and we praise you, Lord, and we ask all this through Jesus Christ, your Son. Amen. Okay, so a lot has happened this week, and I'm so glad that, first of all, we are still alive in spite of the reality of COVID-19. And of course, I also thank God that we are able to have yet another session of the Be Money Wiser Talks. Michael, you're welcome. I'm glad that you could join us this afternoon. So, of course, highlights from last week. I think you remember that I had announced that one of my assistants, Pauline, was leaving to start her own business, and I'm so grateful to all the members of Be Money Wiser that were able to give a modest contribution to her. I think contributions ended yesterday, but it was really thoughtful of all of you, and I'm so glad we were able to have something for her. I would like to welcome the new assistant, Tracy. I like the fact that during the week, as she was sharing on the Be Money Wiser group, she had actually told people that she's so humbled and so grateful to take on this position. However, I would like her to know that I am also very privileged to have her accept to be my assistant going forward. And of course, much as it's an acting position for now, I'm really looking forward to working closely with her. And I am so grateful that she was able to take on this responsibility. This week has also been quite fruitful because we've got a number of volunteers in different aspects. We've got volunteers that are going to help us to improve our video editing. As you can see, we are really trying to give you the best, but of course, well, we can keep on improving so that we give you even much better. So I thank Becky so much for volunteering to take on this responsibility. Hasif, thank you so much. We have Ham, Eropu, Peter, Moses, and I'll mention a few more names as we go along. Thank you so much for volunteering in various aspects to do with video editing and basically providing guidance on the direction for Be Money Wiser going forward. Now, if we can recap a bit to what we covered last week, I think you remember we emphasized the need for us to be mindful of the situations in which we say yes to doing certain things, and then the situations to which we say no in other aspects. Cyrus, I can see you. Thank you for joining us. I think Abahweza too has joined, and Yusuf, thank you for joining us. Let's carry on with our discussion. Okay, so I'm hoping that you've tried to practice a bit of what we talked about last week, being careful before you say yes to doing anything, and also being mindful of the situations where you need to say no. And of course, as you say no, you're being a little bit wiser so that you do not come off as being inconsiderate to other people, but rather emphasizing your position in a given aspect and your ability to generally accept or otherwise, depending on your ability to deliver and deliver effectively. So today we are carrying on the discussion with the topic of mindful communication. Now, of course, communication is looked at in so many aspects. Of course, by the end of our talk, it may not mean that you'll be possibly eligible to work in Uganda Communications Commission. However, the purpose of our discussion this afternoon is to enable us enrich our discussions with each other, but ultimately make wiser decisions with our money. So as we go on with the discussion, I hope that you can be able to relate to the different scenarios in your life, and then to also see how best you can be a little bit wiser in the day-to-day relations that you have with other people. So much as I'm going to talk about this, most of the things that I'm going to talk about are challenges, not just for us, okay, not just for the people that I'm speaking to, but even to me as an individual. These are the challenges that we face in our day-to-day life. So you can also share your experiences as we go on with our discussion, so that we can learn from each other. Not so. Yeah, so that we can have a fruitful discussion. So mindful communication. There are two words that we need to look at in that in the topic for today: being mindful and communication. Now, when you look at the aspect of mindfulness, it means, okay, in these sayings, the day-to-day sayings that we have heard since we were children, they tell you, think before you speak. I think you've ever heard that before. Think before you speak. But now as we grow older, it becomes mindfulness. Everything you do, you first think of all the angles in which what you've spoken is going to affect the other or yourself, and then you go ahead to communicate this with other people. You're being mindful about yourself, and you're also being mindful about the people that you are communicating with. So as we are talking about mindful communication, we need to think about the times in our lives where we have possibly communicated in such a way that required a little bit more mindfulness, so as to be considerate to the other person and also to ourselves. And as we become more aware of this, we shall be able to the same mindfulness in the way we plan for our finances. Are we together? Now, under mindful communication, I need us to think about a number of things. You know, communication has been part of us since we were children. Even babies communicate to their mothers, even if they cannot speak. If the baby is uncomfortable, the baby will cry, and you'll have to come and find out what is wrong with this child. So communication has been there since we were children. And you find that most cases when we talk, even as I talk right now, I am praying and hoping the person on the other side or the people on the other side are listening. But now listening is not just enough. As we speak, it's not enough. Listening requires us to listen and understand. Are we together? So much as someone will speak to you, and you listen, you can internalize everything, but there are some parts you don't understand what this person is talking about, but you're like, anyway, let's move on with this discussion. But as we are living our lives, we need to seek to be understood, not just to be listened to. Are we together? So much as we are talking to people, in most cases, we just expect, they'll listen. But from today, we are going to start being a little bit more careful and more mindful, so that people understand what we are talking about. But understanding does not just happen in the instance. But we'll get to see more as we discuss. Now, in most cases, we focus on what the other person is taking in. Are they understanding me? Are they listening? Things of the sort. But we are now going to reflect on ourselves. As we communicate to other people, are we, the individuals communicating, being thoughtful, being considerate, being having a bit of empathy as you're speaking to the other person, meaning you are not speaking in your perspective, but you are speaking, putting the scenarios and the situations and the problems and the thoughts in the other person's reality at the back of your mind. Are we together? So you're being a little bit more thorough, you're being a little bit more mindful of the other person, and not just looking at what you're planning to achieve, to simply communicate with this person. Now you find that it takes a lot of deeper listening. You listen deeper into what someone is telling you so that you can understand them better. Now, okay, if I take us back a bit, we are looking at you as the communicator, the person speaking to the other person, to be mindful. But then in the scenarios, you're also listening. You need to also still be mindful as you listen, so that you put all the realities of the other person into consideration, so that at the end of it all, you have communicated. You have had a meaningful and mindful communication. But we are going to dig deeper into this as we carry on with our discussion. Now, we have a peace activist called Thich Nhat Hanh, who emphasized that even as we are speaking, we need to be compassionate. His key word is compassion. Compassion means you put the reality of the other person before yourself. And as this activist was trying to encourage peaceful relations, especially between couples and families and things of the sort, the compassion between you and the other person matters a lot as you're communicating. Now, of course, when we are talking about compassion, you appreciate if the person is speaking negativity, you do not point at the negativity itself as the problem. However, you point at the problem within the other person that has caused them to speak that level of negativity. And sometimes when you dig deeper, the problem may actually be you. But you need to understand better where this is coming from so that you are able to communicate and listen to each other. Now, I'm going to refer still to the Rotary Club. I believe some of you are Rotary Club members in Uganda. I'm not sure how many Rotary Clubs are in Uganda. I've been invited to speak at so many, and it has always been a pleasure meeting people in Rotary Clubs. But one key aspect that stands out for me is the four-way test. Most cases when they are starting the talks, they have the four-way test, whereby they emphasize that when someone is going to say something, is going to speak, they need to be mindful of four aspects. One is it the truth? Secondly, is it fair to all concerned? Meaning, if a wife is speaking to the husband, is whatever she's saying fair to both of them? Or the other way around, is whatever you're saying fair to both of you? Then the third one is, will it build goodwill and better friendships? Now, of course, in the Rotary Club, it's a social club, and you're basically trying to have better interaction among yourselves. But one thing I love with this four-way test is that it can be applied even in other aspects of your life. So I'm hoping that even as some people are Rotary Club members, they translate some of these values into their personal lives so that they can enrich the discussion and the communication in their personal lives. But let's carry on with the discussion. So the third aspect is, will it build goodwill and better friendships? Better relationship between you and the other people that you're communicating to. And then fourthly is, will it be beneficial to all concerned? So is what you're going to say beneficial? Meaning, is it positive? Does it bring life? Does it bring energy? Does it make them motivated, happier? Is it beneficial? Is it meaningful? If it is not, and you want to speak negativity, however true your negativity is, I think it is best you keep it to yourself and try to, remain silent until you can speak something that is beneficial, truthful, fair to all concerned, and it will build goodwill and relationships. So you find that mantras like this emphasize the need for us to be mindful before we say anything, to be mindful of the fact that whatever you're going to say needs to impact change in the other person. And if whatever you're going to say is going to bring about negative change, it is best you don't say it. If whatever you're going to say is going to lead to negative thoughts and feelings and unhappiness in another person's life, then it's best you don't say it. Now, mindful communication basically creates a formula of you being a compassionate speaker. A mindful speaker is compassionate, but you are speaking to a thoughtful listener. A person who is not just listening to respond like most of us do. Everything someone says, you're just ready to what? To shoot back. But are we being mindful as other people are communicating to? Are we being thoughtful through what they are telling us so that ultimately we can get a win-win out of the discussion? So you find that mindful communication is equal to mindful speech plus mindful listening. A mindful speaker plus a mindful listener, you get mindful communication. So ultimately, you find that when a speaker is mindful, they are empathetic. They speak putting your situation into consideration. Like, for example, I talk about money. I teach people about how to plan for their resources. But there are scenarios where you can meet someone, the person takes you through the troubles they have had with their finances, and you clearly see where the problem was. But you can't just pin someone because they made a mistake with the financial decision that was before them at that time. If you're a mindful listener, you focus on what lesson the person needed to focus on at that time, so that going forward they can improve on the way that they plan for their resources better. So this kind of principle needs to be at the back of our minds every time we are interacting with people and every time we are trying to get an understanding of how to make wiser financial decisions. So you speak putting the other person at the back of your mind. You speak with compassion, whereby you are appreciating that the other person is facing a challenge. The person is facing a challenge with planning for their resources. The person possibly is facing a challenge with debt. A person is facing a challenge with saving. You speak with compassion, understanding their situation. But in most cases, let me say, if a saver, someone who is good at saving, is speaking to someone who is borrowing left, right, and center, they can never speak on the same page if both of them are not mindful of their differences. So if you're mindful, however much you are good at saving, and you're speaking to someone who has never saved a penny in their lives, you are careful about how you express some of these challenges that they are going through, and then you try your best to see that they understand the mistakes that they are making such that they can transition into making better decisions with their money. We'll get to see this deeper as we go on. So as we speak, we are seeking to be understood. And when someone is to understand you, they will not understand you from your perspective. They will understand you from their perception. So try to put yourself into their shoes, put yourself into their scenario so that they can better understand what you are talking about. And ultimately, you get a win-win. Now, I'm emphasizing this because I'm laying the foundation. I need us to be aware of all these things, even as we carry on this discussion, to see how we can be more mindful communicators in making wiser decisions in our relationships, in our places of work, in our personal lives, and basically being able to put all this together and live a happier and more comfortable life as we stay on the journey of being money wiser. Okay, so as a listener, when you're being thoughtful and you're listening, in most cases, the person you're talking to may say something wrong. And everything the person is saying sounds totally wrong. Like, for example, someone can tell you, you don't save because you are wasteful. You're wasteful, you don't want to put aside money to plan for your resources, things of that sort. Listen. However hard it is, listen. Chew the bitter pill and listen to this person. When the person is done sharing what they think about you, you then get the opportunity to present your situation. Now, of course, as you present your situation, you also need to acknowledge with a great deal of humility that, yes, possibly I've not been able to save, and possibly we are facing a challenge right now without any possibly emergency fund. However, much as I cannot save, I have been able to invest in this, and this. Meaning, a person can have shortfalls and shortcomings with one aspect. But in most cases, when we focus on that one aspect, we fail to see the positivity and the other good things this person has to offer. And then we make a rash decision based on that small shortfall of the person without considering the other line of the other list of positive things that this person is bringing to the table. Now, of late, we have heard that there is a lot of domestic violence, especially during this period of lockdown. You know, most people who are not communicating, imagine you are not communicating effectively when you had the freedom to move in and out of your house, and now you're stuck together in the same house. How will the situation be? You see that the friction increases until one of you takes a deliberate effort to say that, you know what, this needs to be fixed. This is something we need to discuss and communicate mindfully through, so that much as we may have the following shortfalls, we have this going on for us, but let us join all these aspects together and pave a way forward. And also, when we are talking about communication, in most cases, the biggest challenge we have is that the other person that you need to communicate with does not know what you're going through, does not know what you would want them to be aware of. So, communicating mindfully enables you to put your issues across, understand what the other person is going through, express what you're going through, and together you get a way forward. Are we together? And even as we are seeking to communicate with the people in our lives, the people who are directly impacted by the decisions that we make, the first step always starts with you as a person, improving the way in which you make your decisions, the way in which you communicate, the humility that you have to express yourself to the other person without pride, without authoritativeness, but with the highest level of humility, such that both of you can work together to pave a way forward. Okay, what I'm talking about right now is making the talk seem a little bit complex, I guess. But let's dig into the key aspects for us to think about, so as to put all this background into perspective. Now, there are two major aspects in which we are going to think about mindful communication. And I'm going to divide them into basically communicating the past. And then the second aspect is communicating in the present and the future. So present and future are together, the past is separate. Now, I did this deliberately because you find that as we are getting on board the journey of being money wiser, of making better decisions with our money, we have a backlog of the wrong decisions that we made with our money. We have this whole trail. Okay, some people may be blaming us for mistakes here and there. We are also blaming ourselves. We are also regretting, etc., etc. So we have a chunk of issues that we are blaming ourselves for. However, in our present, we are thinking about what can we do now, and for the future to see how the present can build us into the future better way of handling our finances and our resources, and basically living a happier financial life. So you find that when we are looking at the past, mindful communication in the past. In most cases, there was even no communication in the first place. Now, for this part of the discussion, I'm going to emphasize communication in our families and communication in relationships, because you find that this is the backbone, this is the cornerstone of our financial well-being, of our happiness, of our, reason for existence is our families, our households. How are we communicating in our relationships? So the past, like I mentioned, is full of regrets, mistakes, disappointments. You find that much as all that is there is also some beautiful memories in the past, whereby, yes, you may have made a good deal here or there. You may have made a wise decision here or there. You may have, so there is both positivity and negativity. Now, it is up to you, the individual, or your stakeholders, you, the individual, or your stakeholders, to think about where you want to focus on. Now, the mistake that we do is that when we are looking at our past, we focus on the problems and the mistakes that we did with our money in the past, instead of focusing on the lessons that we learned. However, we can also add the positive moments and the positive decisions that we made in our past, such that this can help us carve out a plan for the present and effectively give us a way forward for the future. So as you're looking at the past, do not focus on the mistakes that you made. If you entered into a wrong deal and they stole maybe all your savings, yes, it happened. You learned from it, and it's about time you make a wiser decision. Stop dwelling on the past, dwelling on, if I had that money, if I did this, if I had this. It happened. You used it. You made the decision to the best of your knowledge at the time. And currently, you are a little bit wiser because of the mistake that you made. And evidently, you will not make that mistake again, given the fact that you have learned from it, hoping that you have learned from it. So what do we do for us to learn from it, pick out the positive moments in the past, and slowly pave a way for the future? So those are the two major aspects you're picking from your past. The lessons you learned from the mistakes, and secondly, the positive moments where you made wiser decisions with your money. Now, at the end of it all, we need to be a little bit mindful that as we are communicating the past with our, let me say, in a relationship with our loved ones, it can be with your spouse, it can be with your children, with your business partners. As you're communicating this, always focus on the lesson. Get a deeper understanding of how the decision you made affected the other person. Express apology. Apology and being sorry for a wrong mistake in our past is sometimes very difficult. But it's key for us to express apology if you made a mistake that has hurt someone up to present. Are we together? You apologize and agree on how to build forward. Now, of course, after you've apologized, you've gone through the lessons you went through, you then move on to the second aspect that I'll look at today, of how to maneuver in the present so as to strategize effectively for your future financial decision making. Now, as we are speaking to each other, as you're speaking to your loved ones, maybe in issues to do with mistakes made in the past, the financial decisions they made, things of that sort, ensure that it's not a blame game. Ensure that you are not criticizing the other person and possibly pulling them down because of a decision that they made in the past. However, the discussions held on past financial decisions should be discussions of learning and discussions of positive movement forward. Lessons, emphasizing the lessons learned so as to get a smoother way forward. Then you may find that there are a number of scenarios. Some of them include the issue of gambling. We have a big problem in Uganda with, it's an industry and people are making money out of it. But I hope you've also noticed that most of the money goes to the proprietor and not you, the gambler. So as we are spending a lot of our resources, people make a lot of mistakes gambling. Some of the other aspects in our past are maybe impulse shopping, especially for the ladies. Ladies love buying things, and you may reach a point and it has really dug deep into your financial foundation for your family, and at the end of it all, it sets you back a bit. Then you find that we are all at different income levels in our relationships. Some people earn higher than the other and all that, but with mindful communication, you need to appreciate the fact that respect is always key for each other. Regardless, money should not be the threshold for us to, the basis for us to be more mindful about the other person. We need to respect each other in spite of various the difference in our earning capacities in our relationships. And then you find that some people have been defrauded in the past and they have lost loads of money. But I'll end with a story. Okay, it's not really a story, but an example. I think most of you have heard of these stories of children who, those days, in our days, where they would give you school fees and they tell you, go and pay your school fees. And then the child comes back home crying that the money was stolen. There is a lot of fraud that was going on in financial institutions where external parties can come in, they find you lining up, they give you some nice story, and in the end, they have stolen your money. So you find that children would come, would run back home crying and what, but you find that the father or the parents had borrowed the money for this child to be able to pay school fees. And now the child is coming back home with stories of, the money was stolen, I don't know what to do, crying, etc. And however many sticks you beat this child, the money was stolen. There is nothing much you can do about it, but the kid has to go back to school. So in such scenarios, as you're looking back at your past, I think years later you look back and in most cases it's a big joke. But the key lesson in most of these scenarios that we face is pick out the lesson and teach this lesson to others so that other people do not make mistakes with their money. If it's an older sibling, let the younger ones learn from that child so that they do not make the same mistake with their money. If you're hanging out with other family members and friends, share your experiences with the mistakes you made. Laugh about them, because even if you cry and even if you keep quiet, you can't reverse it. Money was lost, a lesson was learned, life has to go on. So focus on the lesson and always try to pave a way forward. Now, of course, you find that in relationships, it's said that most of the biggest challenges that are faced are financial. And of course, it's also given to the nature of maybe our being in a developing country. Are we developing or low developing country? But anyway, so we are in a developing country, and in most cases, we have challenges with finances. Now, these challenges are not just personal, but they also go down to our relationships and our families. Now, in most cases, we need to try and be able to overcome those challenges. There is more to life than money. You guys, this is Be Money Wiser, but money is not it. It's not the reason for your survival. It's not the reason for your existence. You're not alive on this planet just because of money. With or without money, you have life. With or without money, you can breathe. With or without money, you can move your hands, you can walk, you can smile, you can be happy, you can benefit from everything else God created us to enjoy on this planet, with or without money. That's why you see, even in the olden days, before money came, there was barter trade, and people were able to goods and services and being able to get what they need depending on what they have to offer to the other party. So this business of thinking that your relationship can end or your relationship can be traumatized or damaged or etc. without just because of money should stop. It's tough, it's a tough decision, but it should stop. And one aspect that's going to enable us to stop this is effective communication. if we communicate mindful of each other, if we communicate with the speaker being compassionate about the other person's challenges, and the listener having very deep understanding of what they are being told, or very deep understanding about the struggles, the feelings and challenges of the other party, they are able to work around any scenario to do with money. So are you communicating mindfully, supporting each other, forgiving each other, being able to strategize together so that at the end of it all, you are able to make wiser decisions together, not just for you as an individual or a couple, but for your children, for your stakeholders, for the people looking up to you. Mindful communication is key. So we have put money at the center of everything. We have put money at the center of all arguments, at the center of all. Yes, don't get me wrong. Money is necessary. It's useful. It enables us to live a simpler life and enables us to get the things that we need. Yes, we need money. But do not make it the center of your relations to each other. You need to be very, very open to each other and very much more mindful about how you communicate together to each other, so that at the end of it all, you're able to have an enriched relationship that has freedom, a relationship that has freedom for the other person to feel loved, respected, basically for them to know that they can rely on you through thick and thin. Most of these things we talk about when we are maybe making vows and, speaking in church and things of the sort. But the reality is life. And how we apply most of these things in our lives is what gives us perspective on how beautiful, happy, or better your life can be. But it all starts with you being wiser and you making a wiser and deliberate effort to mindfully communicate with the other party. So life is generally a full package. It's a full package. We keep emphasizing this at Be Money Wiser. Much as we talk about money, the finances, your relationships are important, your health is important, generally your beliefs are important. What is your religion? Are you in touch with your beliefs? And basically being a wholesome individual is very important. So don't rely so much on just financial well-being. Okay, so the second aspect that I think we shall end with today is communicating in the present and for the future. Now, first of all, for it is the present because it is now. Communicating in the present. You are enjoying now, as in you're enjoying now. Most cases you find that we are living in the past, others are living in the future, and by the time you wake up, you have not enjoyed now. It's also part of the past. As in, what is happening? We need to enjoy now first for us to be able to strategize better for tomorrow. Now, how do we enjoy now? We need to make wiser decisions. Every action you make should be calculated, because every action you make now will lead to something in your future, something in a month from now, 2 months from now, 6 months from now. So how are you acting now? Now, there is no way you can enjoy now when your thoughts and your actions are in the past. Everything you talk about, 2 years ago this happened, the other 5 years ago I did this. Come on, get over it. Whether it's positive or negative, it was in the past. Yes, you learned from it, you picked a few things from there, but what are you doing now that is enabling you to have a better tomorrow? If maybe a deal went down 2 years ago and you made some big sum of money, get over it. It happened, you made your money. What are you doing now to make even another bigger deal? Or if something negative happened a few years back, you lost some money, get over it. People have lost money. People have lost even bigger sums of money. But life has to go on. What are you doing now for you to be able to strategize for the future? Now, you find that there are people, I think you've seen these people in communities who give stories about their past. In our days, we were like this. Those days, we used to do this. Those days were those days. What are you doing now? Or what is the present? What is your present activity enabling you to thrive, to be happy, so as to enjoy even a better future? So be mindful to not to live in the past, but to enjoy the present, so that your future is even more enjoyable. So you find that as we are dodging each other, especially in relationships and in our families, to communicate effectively, we opt to do things that waste our time. Time-wasting things. Time-wasting things include, you find that like off-head, an example that happens where there is no effective communication is some couples, are married, but you find that possibly they have to stay in separate rooms. In the same house, you're looking after your children, but you're showing your children that this is how marriage is. You're in separate rooms. When you dig deeper into the issue, okay, of course, a lot of issues are happening in relationships, but I'm just giving examples of it, with all due respect to all of you that are making such decisions. Now, you find that when you dig deeper into issues, you find this is something that both of you would have sat down and communicated effectively. Most people look for plan B outside the relationship because you are tired. You do not even have the energy to try to communicate with your spouse. But then you find that if you had put in the effort, if you had put in the time to try and communicate, you would solve a number of problems than building even bigger problems for the future. So stop making these short-term fixes, thinking that it's a solution to the bigger problem, and yet the problem is growing bigger and bigger. If we went out of our way to try and communicate effectively, you may find that a problem that you have been holding on to for the past 5 or 8 years or 20 years is a problem that you can fix just by sitting down over a cup of tea, over dinner, over a weekend, away from the family and all this business as usual, for you to try and fix by communicating effectively. Ladies, communicating effectively is not screaming over your head as in to put a point across. No. Communicating effectively is understanding what maybe was the problem the other person was facing. What do you want to communicate? How can we work together for the benefit of our well-being and for the benefit of our family? It sounds a little bit superficial. It sounds a little bit hard to achieve, especially if problems have been built over years. But, ladies and gentlemen, it is fixable. And of course, as Be Money Wise strategizes better to carry out a number of retreats in fixing some of these things that are preventing people to thrive in their relationships and to enjoy financial health and financial well-being. As we plan to have such retreats, we believe that we shall be able to fix some of these challenges that are taking place, so that we work together as with your stakeholders, with your families, to see that you pave a smoother way forward in spite of the financial challenges that you may be facing at a given time. Now, of course, as we are trying to build our lives financially in the present, it is key that everything we do it mindfully. You think before you act. That was the simple analogy that we used to use. Okay, we can still use it. You think before you act. You act mindfully. Every decision you make, financial and in your life generally, is done mindfully in the present. I'll give an example. If it's issues to do with planning for your resources, out of the time and those of people writing wish lists, when the reality is such that the finances that we have cannot sustain this kind of lifestyle. For us to act and live mindfully, we need to communicate this to each other. Most cases, spouses think that you should be able to what? To maneuver, you should be able to handle this, you should be able to enable the family to handle this scenario or the other. No, most of these things are for us to sit down. Sometimes you may even have to sit down your children. Okay, but let me first focus on the parents. Sometimes you just have to sit down and go through the list of your expectations as a family. As you're going through these expectations, you look realistically at each other's income levels and ultimately plan out the way in which you will be able to sustain your family and sustain your resources. It is not about building castles in the air. Get this done. Find a way of doing it. Etc. etc. Quarreling here and there when something is not done. Even if someone tells you that the resources are not available, you want them to what? To be able to do something. You guys, it's about communicating mindfully. Let us be open to each other. Let us understand the scenarios of what's happening in the other person's life, etc. etc. so as to be able to make realistic money that can ultimately enable us to move our lives to the next level. If it is borrowing, and you want to borrow money desperately, discuss it with your spouse. We have had cases of maybe, God forbid, a spouse passing on, and the bank comes to take your family home. But this spouse had not communicated to the family that this is the house that is collateral for this loan. They didn't even know that the person got the loan in the first place. But even before you make such decisions for each other's, as in for your financial survival, discuss. Sit down with your spouse and discuss. We have a traditional issue whereby most men may think that these issues to do with money are not for what? For women. Or issues to do with financial management in the home, I will handle, or things of that sort. But we are past that time. We are in an age where women too are working. Women too are earning money for their families. And by the way, women, this money is for the well-being of the family as a whole. I've heard women mentioning things like, my money is my money, your money is our money, and all that business. That business doesn't work when it's when you're planning to be a little bit more mindful about running the family in this century. You sit down, look, the woman puts something on the table, the man puts something on the table, and together you plan out the resources for your family. In the book that I released last year, which I'm also making the second edition this year, we looked at the detail in which you can plan for your money as a family. And there are 3 major scenarios where you can sit down and say, okay, 50-50. If we are planning for resources together, we shall, I will contribute 50-50 to whatever the family needs. Another scenario is, you can say that since we are married, after all, we have been joined together to run this thing called a family. Let's get all our salaries in the same account, all our income in the same account. So you put all your money together. Now, as you are spending this money, you agree. Should we spend on this? No? Yes. Like that. You deduct and spend your money together as a family. That's another aspect. And a lot more issues are expressed in that book that you can also look into. But what I'm trying to bring out here is, to what extent are you sitting down together to rationally, mindfully, thoughtfully discuss finances in the home? And as you're discussing these finances, for you to be able to make an action-based plan. First, forget about these plans that we build in the air. And we just say, you do that, you should be able to do it. Also, you do this. No. An action-based plan. This is what we are earning. This is what the family needs. This is how we are going to handle. Where do we see our family in the next 10 years? Where do we see ourselves in the next 20 years? And ultimately, as we communicate effectively, as we communicate mindfully, we are able to each understand how best to improve the planning for our resources together. Okay, Now, after we have looked at our present and we are acting and thinking mindfully, we ultimately need to plan for the future. Now, in money issues, everything is about planning. Actually, the key word in any topic to do with your personal finances or moving your financial level from one level to the other, it's simply one word: planning. As long as you would want to do this effectively, sit down and plan realistically in the present, so as you can ably strategize for the future. So as you're planning, mindful communication is also very important. Stop building castles in the air. Be very realistic. Look at your income levels at the moment. Look at your dreams. Look at what you're planning to achieve in the short run, in the long run, and then plan together as a couple, as a family, so that you effectively achieve this. Now, you'll also find that there are challenges that you may be facing right now. And like I told you, sometimes this discussion requires you to also sit down your children, to also discuss this with your children, such that they understand the parents are in this financial phase, therefore possibly they cannot pay for us school fees in this school. They want to take us to one they can afford. Other scenarios can be, maybe you've been eating possibly 8 meals a day at home, because every time you want your children to have a fruit, to have this, to have that, you tell them, you guys, in our days we used to eat 3 major meals: breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We are going to try that out for this period until my finances stabilize. So communication is very key, and you find that the other party will understand as long as you are not beating around the bush. Sometimes you want to give a picture, an impression that everything is okay. If it's not okay, you guys, communicate. If it is okay, still communicate. When times are okay, enjoy those moments. Enjoy those moments together, because those are the moments that are going to make your memories as you're making the right financial decisions. If times are not okay, then it is fine. Sit these people down and communicate the changes, so that you are able to survive until such a point when you can thrive again. I don't know if you guys have any questions, but I've talked about a number of things, and I'm moving to. Now, when I was in Nabisunsa, I studied in Nabisunsa for some years, Nabisunsa Girls School. The motto was, you reap what you sow. That is one thing I really liked about the school, the motto. It would speak to you, because in everything you did in school, you, at the back of your mind, you would think that, have I revised for the exam? And you evaluate yourself, such that by the time the results come out, you are aware that you have got the points for which you read for. You reap what you sow. That is in all our different scenarios of life. If you're communicating effectively and mindful of the other person, you will reap positivity from the other person. You will reap understanding, you will reap love, you will reap open communication. But if you are not communicating effectively with the other person, and you are not watering the positivity in the other person's life, so as for them to get on board and make better decisions together with you, you're going to reap negativity, quarrels, arguments, and things of that sort. So it is up to us to decide what is it in our life that we want to focus on, so as to be able to sow. To sow is like to plant. For you to sow, for you to plant that seed that can enable you to reap, to harvest, to reap the best out of a given financial decision or any other decision with this person. Now, okay, I have a few questions here. Is negativity related to negative news? Elaborate. How do you communicate negative news? Okay, so the question here is about handle negative news and how to communicate negative information with the other person. Now, first of all, whether something is good or bad, you have to put it on the table. You have to talk about it, because when you are open to express it, you will be amazed at the extent to which the other person may be understanding, and together you work towards a positive way forward. Now you find that, for example, you have just been defrauded of, let me say, all the savings on your account, and you have to communicate this to your spouse. You have lost the money that you have suffered saving for a given period of time, and you need to communicate this to your spouse. I think that would categorize negative news. Now, yes, this has happened. First of all, timing is very important, because you do not just find someone a little bit not in their good mood, and you want again to put an icing on that with more negativity. No. You first of all have to create a very comfortable and nice scenario, like whereby the person is comfortable to listen to you in the first place. Now, as you're breaking down this news, you need to be as honest and as open as possible. Of course, you'll be a bit scared that the person is going to quarrel, the person is going to make noise. No, it is okay. Express the news as openly, as genuinely, and as it is to the other person. Express the difficulty that you're going through to even face this challenge. It has also traumatized you, so you're communicating your problem. That I am in shock, I cannot believe I lost this, I was sure I was going to make more money out of this, but they have stolen all the money, and I just don't know what to do. But in most cases, what we do is we hide. You hide and you act like everything is normal. Everything is business as usual. The other person is seeing you stressed. The other person is seeing you getting annoyed with small things just because of the pressure you're suffering with. And the person may not easily understand what is going on. But when you express this, you're all on the same page, you know what has happened. Now, of course, you do not expect the other person to welcome you back from your troubles. It can be a very tough decision for them to even listen to what you're talking about, or even take in what you're talking about. But it is okay. Give them time. Let them out whatever is troubling them with the decision that you've made. Then give it some time. You know, most cases, the negativity that may happen with our financial decision making is not fixable in one instance. It does not mean that because you communicated nicely, effectively. Actually, if you made the mistake, it's easy to communicate effectively. But it does not mean that because you did all that, the other person must say yes. No. The person is also struggling to understand you. Now, after that first initial communication, give the person time to take it in, give the person time to cool down, give the person time to basically internalize what you talked about, and then create a new moment. You know, I'm saying create a new moment because most cases we are living our lives thinking moments will create themselves, or thinking the other person will create a moment for us to talk. That never happens that way. Everything good that you want in your life, you have to play a key and deliberate effort in making it happen. So you will create another moment for you to discuss the same issue with this person. And even as you're discussing with this person, express to the person that you need their help. You know, the level in which you communicate this with high humility enables you to express yourself very effectively. So as you're talking to this person, in most cases you also want to apologize a little bit more and all that, but express yourself in such a way that you require this person, you're requesting this person to help you out of this situation. And I mean, the person you're talking to is your spouse. The person you're talking to is the person who will be hit as hard as you're hit by that financial situation. So in asking for their help, you're trying to work together into getting a way forward. Of course, you're not sure whether at that point the person is still able to listen to you and all, but if it requires a third time effort, that is also okay. You create the moment. So you have to keep on creating these moments until you have both like either agreed or disagreed, or you basically need to still come up to a consensus, and that consensus is simply to enable you to pave a way forward for your family's well-being, and ultimately for you to forgive yourself for the decision that you made, and then ultimately for the other person to also get over it. Because I mean, it is a mistake. A few weeks from now or a few months from now, it will be in your past, and you will still have to deal with it. So you give the person time until you are able to sit down together and discuss the aspect that was setting you back financially, and you pave a way forward. So you guys, the need for communication reminds us, okay, I think I have a few minutes. Let me wind up a bit. But I just needed to conclude with the fact that the need for effective communication reminds us that stop keeping quiet about such things. Stop keeping quiet about the things that are bothering you. Stop keeping quiet about the things that, the mistakes that you made, about the other person's disgruntledness, possibly about the decisions you're making. Don't keep quiet about such things. Sit down and talk about them. However tough the situation is, that toughness is only temporary. That negativity that you will get at that point, or the backlash from the reactions of the other person, are only temporary. But after mindful communication, in a matter of time, in a shorter period of time, you'll be able to pave a way forward than building mountains and heaps of problems out of something small that could have ideally been fixed if you both expressed yourselves effectively. So I have really talked about relationships more because of the concern that there is a lot of domestic violence, misunderstandings in relationships, things of the sort, especially during this period, this COVID mixed period. But I'm hoping that as we continue to be mindful of each other, as we continue communicating mindfully, we shall be able to make better decisions together in our families, better decisions with our money, and also better decisions that can enable us have a firm foundation for our journey as we are striving to be money wiser. Okay, so that brings us to the end of our talk today. Thank you so much for following. For more information, we shall be sharing on our WhatsApp group. For the rest of us that are on the WhatsApp group, we shall let you know on the new developments of what's coming up. And of course, we shall be here next Sunday still for another session of the Be Money Wiser Talks. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining us today. And yeah, enjoy the rest of the weekend. Have a good evening. Thank you.